feeling good. I try to build my life, try to make us feel. All right, we should have enough people joining us in the background. It's called Bigger Than Me. Normally, if I were with you at ASCD right now, I would be walking across the stage to that music. It is Bigger Than Me. If you want to look that song up, it's Leandria Johnson. And my, we are certainly in a time that is bigger than us. I am so excited to be here with you today. Now, here's the thing. Normally, I'm looking at all of you in the audience. So I'm just going to imagine that my audience is right there. And that's just perfect for today. Respond, reimagine, and restart. This is about disrupting the status quo. So as we prepare to get started today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what you're going to gain out of today. We have about 45 minutes together. Save a little bit of time for questions at the end. But I want to say thank you. We know how precious time is. And for you to invest your time today to learn a little bit more, to connect with one another, to prepare, to respond, reimagine, and restart is truly a privilege of mine to have this opportunity to spend that time with you. Thank you for investing your time today. As we get ready to get started, one person you will see on the screen and one person you won't see on the screen, but she'll come on at the very end. I call them my data diva and my data dude. So I have a data duo team here at Topeka Public Schools. I'm Dr. Anderson, the superintendent. My data team that's working on a lot of the background items with what we're doing in Topeka, they'll be coming in, and perhaps some voices will be coming in as well. So as you have questions, there are a team of people here that will also be giving some resources or putting them in the chat. So as we get started today, for those that I don't know, again, I'm Dr. Anderson, the superintendent. I am so glad that you're joining us today. Many of you have seen me speak, and I'll be repeating some of those items, but today's just a little different. Even the picture down below is just a little different than what you may have heard in the past, because we're living in some different times right now. So as we jump to our next several slides, and we have a few people that are helping me kind of move this item along, I don't want to assume you know about Topeka Public Schools. It is an amazing place. So I'm going to share a little bit about Topeka. We have a lot to cover. You probably won't get through all of the slides, but I've uploaded them for you so that you have these and many other resources. I can guarantee you this. You're going to leave today, you're going to leave this screen and go to your next session energized with some new ideas. If nothing else, you're going to laugh a little, love a little bit on people that you're able to talk to throughout this, but also you'll be reminded you're not alone. We're all in this new territory together. And we're going to have this opportunity to just share resources. So I'll be talking about resources and systems in general, but I encourage you to send your questions. So my data duo team, my data diva and my data dude is Dr. McDonald. He has his screen off. Dr. Mack, are you there? Oh, he may not take his screen off right now, but you'll probably meet him at the very end if he doesn't chime on in. So Dr. McDonald is my data dude, and he's in the background really looking at some of your questions. And then Miss Catherine Risley, both of them are called improvement specialists in Topeka Public Schools. Those improvement specialists will also continue to stay on the line with us. So as Dr. McDonald and Miss Risley are in the background, they'll be looking at your questions, sending them through. So I can't see your chat immediately. It'll be about 15 to 30 seconds delayed. So as your chat box comes up, we'll answer those along the way and have a couple of stops. So here's what I'm going to start with. As we look at our slides today and have our PowerPoint pulled up, I'm going to share with you a little bit about some demographics, and I will tell you that demographics cannot determine destiny. My goodness, this COVID-19, this pandemic has widened the achievement gap in ways that we could not have imagined. Just think about students that struggled before leaving for spring break and where they are now. But I want you to remain hopeful, because we know that will not determine our destiny. So I want you to be sharing your stories today. I'm going to tell you some things about Topeka and the incredible people I get the privilege to work with, some of the neat ideas, but I also want you to share some of your ideas. In fact, some of you that are in the audience sent me some ideas which are added into this PowerPoint. And so in this Topeka Twitter, please do share things that you're interested in, things you want to know about. From here on, we are now allies forever. And so if you need something from me, my email was on that very first slide, but our Twitter, follow us, and perhaps we'll follow you back and share your story. If you look right now at the news or the media, you hear a lot lot of negative stories, a lot of scary things. In order to build hope in our community, we have to give hope-filled stories. So I encourage you to do that throughout today as you meet other people, as you hear different stories. Now, I'll be talking relatively fast to get through a lot of information, and I still won't get through it all. But I want to give you as many tools as you possibly can use, and I would love to hear from you as well along the way. So here's one of the items that I do want to make sure that we get through. I'm going to say at the very beginning, you want to know your impact. That's from John Hattie. Oh my goodness, you know that your impact is so amazing, even through a video screen. So today we're going to be identifying systems and strategies for you to disrupt the status quo, to transform systems, to respond, to reimagine, to restart. That's what you're going to be doing today. And so as we go on to our next several slides, and again, I'm going to move relatively quickly just about our zip code. So for Topeka, we won't spend a lot of time about who we are, but I just want you to know, if you're someone that has 70% or 80% free lunch and you're just wondering how to get through this thing, we're right there with you. We have 77% free lunch, about a third African American, a third white, a third Hispanic of our students, and we have about 600 homeless students on any given year. So we also understand that large gap that could continue if we aren't strategic moving forward. And before I came to Topeka, I was a superintendent in a couple of other places, both in Virginia as well as in Kansas and Missouri are the three places I've been in. And in those other places, I'll share with you a little bit about those other places as well as we quickly kind of go to those very next slides, just so that you know those places as well, like Topeka, have their challenges. They look different, but they have their challenges. I'm going to go into those slides momentarily. Ron Edmonds once said, and this is very old, an old quote, but it's so perfect for right now. We can, whenever we choose, teach all children whose schooling is of importance to us. Really, whether or not we're doing it, it depends on how we feel about the fact that we haven't been able to do it so far. That was before COVID. So imagine now. But I want you to know we can, in fact, we must teach all children whose schooling is of importance to us. And so thinking about that importance, I want you to begin to think about what you can do to change and transform education. You know, I believe that there are really no problems. They're really just challenges and opportunities. We are right now in an opportunity, standing in the middle of this space to transform teaching and learning, have it look different, to show what creativity we have as educators, and to show that there's nothing that will get in our way. This equity gap that we now have, we know that we can overcome that. We're going to share a few things of what we've done in the past in Topeka and some of the systems we put in place now, just in this last several months. So Topeka, if you didn't know, we won the 2018 National Magna Award for Equity. In 2017, we won the award for innovation. Again, prior to coming to Topeka, I went to several districts, and we'll just flip through those slides really quickly. Those other districts both include Montgomery County Public Schools as well as Jennings School District. Dr. McDonald, if you can go to those next several slides really quickly. Jennings, when I first started, below 50% is when a person loses their accreditation. When I got there, they were at 57%, so it was scary times. In a relatively quick amount of time, they moved from meeting 57% of their accreditation standards to 81% to 90%. And now Jennings has pretty much 100% graduation rate. Let me tell you something, systems remain, programs come and go. Man, have we seen that right now with COVID-19, all the programs that we have in schools as kids left, all the material items as they left, those come and go. They come and go with the leader. They come and go with the issues that impact schools, but systems can remain. So today we're going to talk about systems. I'll also share with you Montgomery County, without showing all their graphs. Again, the achievement gap was one that was relatively large. In a very short period of time, we closed that. That's just one school of the 30 schools that are in Montgomery County. In fact, Montgomery County was in the news most recently, still doing very well across the district. With that, let's jump into the work. Three things can create great schools, great classrooms, and a great district. Doesn't matter where you are. So from now on, when you leave here, I want you to separate everything that you learn into these three things. When I go into a district or a school or a classroom, I look at these three things: relationships, pedagogy, and curriculum. So relationships, it's really trust. How are you going to build trust? During this time, in this COVID era, during this pandemic, how are you going to build trust? Pedagogy, or your systems of support. The systems of support are a variety of things, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then that curriculum piece, the high expectations. If you think about your schools right now, before you went on spring break, if your school was not achieving at the highest possible level it could, if your district wasn't achieving at the highest level, chances are it was one of those things. One of those things were broken. Either the relationships, perhaps between students and parents, parents between parents, staff, pedagogy, the systems of support, having the materials. And you think about COVID right now, folks who don't have digital access or computers, or curriculum, having an aligned standards-based curriculum. I will tell you right now, I am standing here and walking around and pacing because people who know me know that I tend not to sit. There's too much to get done, and there's so much energy. When I fill a room and I come into a room, so much energy filling a room, that I like to move and make sure that I am as connected as possible. And so with that, I want you to think about trust, systems of support, and high expectations, relationship, pedagogy, and curriculum. Think about your district right now. Out of those three things, before you left during the pandemic, before you left for spring break, which one of those three were not necessarily where they needed to be for students to really reach the highest possible levels they could? I'm going to give you just a second of think time. And now that you're in this space, perhaps it's all three. But which one of those three are you most worried about? All three, when they're in place, schools, classrooms, districts achieve at the highest levels. I'm going to ask for you to just send it to the chat. And as we see those chats in terms of relationships, pedagogy, and curriculum, I'll give you a quick example. Sometimes I get the opportunity through ASCD to go and visit schools and to go and speak to other school districts. And often when I go and look into a classroom or a school, and I'll ask them, and sometimes they'll say, you know, man, we have all of our teachers here, we have a great curriculum, but for some reason, the students aren't learning at high levels. Well, sometimes it's trust, even with the community in the school. Sometimes it's issues in which teachers, yeah, they're doing all that they can, but the systems of support aren't in place. They don't have the materials they need, or they don't have the training. In some places, all of those things are in place, but the curriculum just isn't aligned. So give you a second. Think about your district right now. Out of those three areas, what's the area that rises to the top the most right now? Because every idea, every innovative item, every piece of research, we want to target really hard that particular item. And I guarantee you, in a short period of time, you're going to see progress and movement in some pretty amazing ways, as we've seen here in Topeka and as we've seen in the other places that I've been. So as you think about that and jot that in, is it relationships, pedagogy, or curriculum? Which of those areas really kind of fall to you right now as areas of greatest concern? Now, I know that may be all three, but that one that you want to make sure that you really hit hard, because that's what we're going to be spending our time on. So with that, relationship seems to be coming in over and over again. As we continue this piece and we kind of look at some items of relationships, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that. And so as we continue to kind of go down our list, and I see, again, I don't get your chat, but someone's sending me some of the questions that you're saying and sending in. So as we kind of go through that area and we look at these next several pieces, buckle your seats and get ready to go through several strategies. Today, we're going to be looking at how we're going to respond, restart, and reimagine. Look, our kids are counting on you. There are no barriers except your mindset. As of today, I want you to say not we must, but we will respond. We're going to restart, and we're going to reimagine how we're going to do this thing moving forward. Our kids, our families are counting on you. I'm counting on you. And I need you to say back, count me in. So in counting me in, I want you to know that there are many resources through ASCD. And those resources include a whole COVID toolkit. If you're not a member of ASCD, you can probably access some of the items on the toolkit, but I would encourage you to look at that and to be able to use some of those resources. They also have some videos. If you can't see the whole video, you'll be able to see small video clips. Now, every good teacher loves to talk about their family and their children, and I am no different. And so for us, we have had ASCD in my last school district in Jennings. They do have a docu-series on several schools that are high performing. In fact, they have videos on schools that have really navigated some tough waters, and I would encourage you to look at those. We're going to show you a quick 2-minute clip of a video from ASCD called Count Me In. This is from when they visited and spent quite a bit of time talking to parents and students. It's about 2 minutes, but it gives you a glimpse of where we were there. And that same district right now is preparing to open in the pandemic. And with that in mind, we want to give you some ideas of when you're in that district, much like your own, what are you going to do next? So we'll be giving you a few ideas. So indulge for just a moment as I take you down a stroll in St. Louis County in Jennings.
Many people count you out because of where you live, because of how you look, because of who you are. I don't see myself as a central office administrator. I am a teacher. Do you like them?
No.
And they match your uniform?
Good.
Oh my goodness.
So stand up, jump around and see if they fit okay.
In the past, a lot of us may have been ashamed to say that our children were in the Jennings School District. 4 years ago, that changed. Dr. Anderson came in with her feet on the ground. She was running.
I do a walkthrough in every school pretty much every day. So this morning I like to spend time in classrooms really looking at instruction, student engagement. You just have this down so skillfully, so it's so great to see. So Ms. Sanders, future lawyer, do you know what college you think you might want to go to? How are you doing? Good? Fine. Good. How are you? Very well. Good. Very well.
Really, the relationship building, I think, has really been a piece that has set us on a path of success. And now we're a family that's really supporting each other.
And if you put people first and you listen and give them a voice, oh, it's amazing the transformation that can take place. Connectivity that inspires. It's the connections that you make even when you don't meet the other people. The people, or the movement, the leader just got them on the right path. That's all.
I'm counting on you. Count me in. I'm counting on you. Count me in. I'm counting on you. Count me in. I'm counting on you. Count me in.
Thank you, and congratulations, college prep.
Thank you for indulging as I shared with you just that piece. Dr. McDonald's going to go to where you find that at. And so you can see on ASCD, and you'll find examples of systems and relationships. I see several of the questions asking about how do you get to some systems? So we're going to jump into that piece with the time that we have. He's going to make that just a little bit larger so you can see it clearly on your screen. So he's on ASCD. Again, if you remember, you could automatically go into these pieces. But if you type into their search, COVID-19, it's going to come up with videos, books, a variety of items. If you put in the video, Don't Count Me Out, you'll see that video, but you'll see many, many other videos. That's just a resource. I'm going to go on out of that resource, go back to the PowerPoint. And so in this space, I want you to leave with a toolkit. I want you to be ready. You know, kids are so resilient, and so are our teachers. And in your mind right now, I want you to be thinking about the student that you thought maybe wouldn't make it, that is doing great things in life. That student, that's who we're going to focus on today. Everybody has kind of their favorite student, and I'm no different. My goodness, mine is Kevon Munger. He's in that picture from his high school graduation. I love that young man. He calls me a school mom. I haven't talked to him for a while, and I call him my school son. I'm going to tell you what. And I'm also a little bit of a storyteller. So just indulge for just a moment. I was in Jennings some years ago, and I was at a Christmas program. And at that Christmas program, I saw this young man, and this is going to go to systems right here and relationships. And he wasn't singing in the choir. He's an amazing singer. And I said, young man, why aren't you on the choir? Weren't you supposed to sing? And he said, I wasn't feeling it. I said, what? You weren't feeling it? You weren't feeling it? Well, I'm going to talk to your parents because you have to feel like being part of the team. Long and short, the young man got into my car. I told him I was on my way to the Rams. It was a sports team that was in town, and I had to go there got the opportunity to go there to receive a donation they were giving, and I couldn't be late. Within minutes, I learned the young man was homeless. I learned the young man had figured out the community in a way that I had never heard, and he gave me a whole lesson about how do you survive and function year after year with such difficulty. This young man who I was looking at and stopped and thank goodness said, what is your name and why weren't you on stage? gave me a lesson that will forever be with me. I will tell you that Kevon went with me to the Rams game. I received the check at the Rams, and the lady there, the public relations person, her name is Molly Higgins, and she said, is this your son? I told her, no, this is my school son. She wanted to know, what's a school son? A school son is someone that needs a school mom right now. She ended up mentoring him. Long and short, she adopted that young man. Kevon has a bigger house than any of us right now, and actually he's in the Marines traveling the world. Imagine if I didn't stop to say, young man, why aren't you on stage? Imagine if I wasn't fully present. It is so difficult in this COVID pandemic era to not be fully present and to not be strategic in how we respond. So I'm thinking of the Kevons that are counting on us. I will tell you, from that moment, I went back to my staff and I said, what do we do about all the students that are homeless? What do we do about the Kevons that are out there? And how do they get their college applications in? And who does their FAFSA form? And my questions went on. And we decided that, why don't we look at creating a place for all of those students? Jennings today has something called the Hope House. We ended up calling down the street to see if the foster home down the street would be willing to partner with us, and they were willing to partner. We opened up the very first Hope House. Any student that is homeless, that's in foster care, can now live in that home until they graduate. Later in the slideshow, there's a picture of that Hope House because people come from all over the world to come and visit it. And so that's a system that's now in place that will continue moving forward. We're going to talk about systems during this COVID era and then during this pandemic to put into your toolkit as well. As we go from there and we think about strategically responding, remember, we're going to respond, but not just run into a place that's on fire without a hose. We're going to make sure that we have all the tools we need to strategically respond. We also want to creatively imagine, not just reimagine schools, but be as creative as possible, which means we must share our stories and look for other stories. Every day we are looking at who's doing something in particular areas with technology, or who's doing something creative with lunches or Wi-Fi, and many of our ideas are coming from that. So creatively reimagining schools. This is an opportunity for us all. Now here's the last one. We want to restart, but we're going to have to be fearless in this restarting. I am the daughter of two pastors, and so two retired pastors, so I always say faith over fear, and in this space, be fearless in restarting. A lot of anxiety and concern. And the more news you listen to, the more frightened you might be. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to restart, but be fearless in our restarting. And so in order to do all of this, we have to know where people are. We want you to seek to understand in order to serve. You can't serve people you don't understand. So to be strategic in your responding, you have to seek to understand. So how do you do that? Well, there are a number of ways. So I want to know who's in the room with us today. One of the items I'm just going to throw out as a question in terms of who's in the room, how do you actually identify? Are you by your district or your state or by ethnicity? Who's in the room? And so as I ask that question, I want to pose that question. So as we go to our next slide, this whole piece of who am I really? Being able to ask your staff and being able to ask your students, who you are, and making sure that even through Zoom, I ask that question, and you'd be surprised what I get. In this time of unrest, social unrest and protest, we actually have an equity council that is occurring right now. In fact, one of their upcoming sessions is with the district attorney. I wanted to know, how do students identify? And I was surprised at the diversity in the room that you might not see by looking at the students. Or you might not see by looking at some of our parents, but the diversity was so widespread. I wanted to understand, what was it like living in their neighborhood, in their community? And so through those equity councils, which we hold every month by Zoom, we're going to continue that in our district. That's a system to get voices out, whether you are at school in person or not. A piece we did not do before March, but we will do moving forward, whether we are in person in school or whether we're out of school. Here's the other seek to understand, and I will tell you that we all stand in our own points of privilege. One of the things that most people know about me is I always wear a scarf no matter where I go. And in this wearing a scarf, there's a story behind it. I was a principal in St. Louis City, and as we go to this next slide, you're going to see a big tree, and that tree was planted many years ago. It's now a fully grown tree, and in that slide, I will tell you that our systems really speak to who we are in terms of, do we have systems in place that take care of the most vulnerable? How we take care of the most vulnerable says a whole lot about us. That's our young people and our elderly. And so that tree that you see there is planted in Ivory Park, right next to a bunch of houses and apartments. That's Rodney McAllister. He was a 4th grade student. I said was because he is no longer with us. And in that year that I was a principal, when I started at Clark, I was 25. And I will tell you that at that 25 age, most people said, how is she going to tell us how to teach? You know, I've been teaching longer than she was a principal. But one morning I came into our building, and I will tell you that when I came in, the 2 officers, I can remember pretty clearly, Officer Protho and Middleton, and they wanted to know that all of my students showed up. You don't want that call if you live in a place or you're working in a place that is 100% free lunch, which is what Clark School was at that time. While I shared that, let me check, and we ran through the building with our parent liaison. Within minutes, we knew that Rodney was absent. Within an hour, we learned that he died across the street from the school in the park. He was identified by the homework in his pocket. He had been mauled to death by dogs all night. And I asked my parents, didn't you hear screaming? And they said, well, yes, Doc, we heard screaming. He screamed all night long. And I asked in my own place of privilege, why didn't you open the door? And their response to me was, in this community, how dare you? When we hear screaming, we lock the door and we close the blinds. When we hear gunshots, we hide under our bed. How dare you ask us? When we call the police, they don't always show up quickly. And so at that moment, my piece of seek to understand in order to serve. So during this pandemic, understanding the challenges that even if you give a computer or Wi-Fi, even if students are invited back to school and they don't come, we want to make sure that we open up some portals of conversation that doesn't require necessarily being in school. Whether it's through Google Classroom, whether it's through Zoom and giving the phone number so that they can call in and they don't have to use Wi-Fi or the internet. But whether it's for us, we have a phone calling bank where we really just have a receptionist that has a phone number and we put it out there and say, this is the emergency hotline, but it's actually one person that gets those calls and gets them to the right person. But having ways for people to give you information. We changed what we did that year. I told my staff we weren't doing enough. They said, what else can we do? That year and every year since then, we actually put washer and dryers in our schools. We now have 18 washer and dryers here in Topeka, actually, but in Jennings and both in Clark School, we put washer and dryers. Parents can wash one load of laundry in exchange for 1 hour volunteerism. That's a system. Moving from there, we continue to put in a number of other resources that allow for people to truly make sure that they were not only heard, but they had many opportunities to engage with our school. We started having parent conferences at football games, at the grocery store. So I want you to reimagine schools through this new space that we're in. Now that we're in this pandemic space, we can be just as creative. And we're going to give you some examples of kind of what we've done in Topeka. On this very next slide, you'll see some of those examples listed about strategically responding. The first thing was Wi-Fi. Families didn't have it. And so some did, many didn't. Again, we're 78% free lunch. We read somewhere, and this is where the power in telling your story, that another district put them on buses. And so we purchased hotspots, and we also learned there are other gadgets that you can put on buses. We park buses in neighborhoods, and we were able to give Wi-Fi to the areas surrounding them. And so kids could actually come out and do something on Google Classroom where they could do it offline, literally get near that bus and immediately be online. We also have a map which is uploaded to the ASCD website. So this PowerPoint and all of the resources that I'll mention are also uploaded. In the interest of time, I'm not bringing all of them up, but we have a map here in Topeka that shows every business that has Wi-Fi and where they're located at, whether it's a parking lot, a McDonald's, but many of the parking lots that are around us also have Wi-Fi around many of the neighborhoods. So we made sure we told parents that. We videotaped lessons. We made sure that we had a COVID-19 portal. And on that portal, which is on the Topeka Public Schools website, we have family videos and letters, the emergency line, sample lessons. We have porch drops, which we hope in the future we'll be doing those by drone. So with all of those items, we made sure we had some systems. Here was one that many of you have in your own communities. There is a church on every corner. So we asked all the churches to open their doors and help us give out lunches. And guess what they did? We just had to ask. So that's strategically responding. The equity conversations we have with our students and we have with our staff, those are continuing. But as you think about how you strategically respond through the lens of relationship, pedagogy, curriculum, you can look at this list and you can already see there's curriculum on there, the relationship piece with the clergy who now have adopted all of those schools that continue to serve those families. You can also see on there pedagogy and just teaching, how we get great teachers and how we make sure that we give them just resources that they can use through our COVID-19 webpage. So very quickly with the time that we have, I'm going to kind of go through some other systems and things I want you to think about moving into this year. Pre-COVID, we actually had animal therapy and a variety of trauma support. So we actually put in place a number of systems for social emotional resources for our families. We've now partnered with the mental health systems. And if you haven't done that, I would encourage you to do that. Telehealth and asking the hospitals that give telehealth, believe it or not, if you ask them if they can have a telehealth line to serve your families, most hospitals and agencies will say yes. And so we actually have University of Kansas Hospital giving telehealth services to all of Topeka. So while the days are different and you won't see that image that you see on Ed Week about trauma-informed leadership and seeing animal therapy, which in Topeka we have 14 animal therapy dogs serving our students, we're still finding ways to give therapy. And so in this space, and I can only imagine how much larger that gets, for our registration form, if you don't already have this, we actually have 3 questions from the ACEs survey. And we started this about 2 years ago. Now it's so helpful, especially when kids come in, we already know from that survey, it's a mental health screening. 3 questions. If you want a copy of those questions or that survey, we certainly can send it to you. Just send me an email or follow us on Facebook or social media. We'll get that to you. But on that survey, parents can mark off where they are and where their kids are. And for us, our counselors know first day before kids ever walk through the door, just a brief mental health screening. I mean, my goodness, we give eye screenings and ear screenings. Why wouldn't we be giving a mental health screening? And today, it now helps us. We know right now today what groups we need to be forming when students do come back, virtual or otherwise. We already over the summer have been having small group sessions with certain kind of therapeutic services through our partners. And we knew that because they registered and they marked that on their registration. So I would encourage you, again, think out of the box. And so here's this piece about the curriculum and pedagogy. I want you to ask yourself, because we don't want to lose sight of this, what standards did kids struggle with before the pandemic? Well, that hasn't changed. Do you have multiple ways for families to access those standards now? So whether you have a hybrid model or in-school model, what are those various ways? And again, relationships, pedagogy, curriculum. I would encourage you that videotaping lessons and giving ways for parents to access that is so key. I would encourage you as well that the phone bank is just a really simple way because most people in poverty do have a telephone. As we think about students with poverty, I just want to remind you of some things that are often quite common. Now for us, there are 2 authors that have come to Topeka. In fact, they were just last year in January. Both Bill Paray and Kathleen Budge. They wrote the book Disrupting Poverty and High Performing High Poverty Schools, and they had a book that just came out in the last month on this very same topic. We already know that there are a number of things that we often see when kids are in poverty. Those things haven't gone away. So as you start your new model of learning, think about your structures so that when kids come with excuses, they're still going to have that of why they're not at school or why they may not be on the computer or why they aren't showing up. Think about your structures that you're going to begin to have in place. Kids who like to entertain, thinking about ways in which you can have them engaged video-wise and ways that they can continue to look at their community and have some outlets that they might not otherwise have. But these are just pieces to keep in mind. Most importantly, there's a picture of the brain in here, and we're not going to get through all of these slides, but this picture of the brain that I'm going to show you next is the reminder of what it looks like after sitting quietly for just 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes of walking, what your brain looks like. I'm standing and moving around with you, and it gives me energy, and while I can't see you, I want to believe that I'm feeling your energy coming on through. But thinking about how are you going to engage kids? whether they are virtual learners or not. For us, we actually had PE and art still going on all summer long, and we invited students to get online. We did porch drops for art supplies. We gave them activities. In fact, our physical education teachers right here in Topeka actually had an entire physical education fair that families across the community, no matter where you lived, could participate in. So be thinking about ways in which you can do that. And I'm going to tell you on the Wi-Fi, because I know all of us have had some struggle with that, no matter what district you're in. For us, again, relationships. We actually approached both the churches and the cable companies and other donors that have donated in the past. And we asked them to underwrite services for families. So if they knew what the bill was each month, just one general bill, would they be willing to underwrite services? Surprisingly, many have said yes. Maybe I should say not so surprisingly, we just had to ask. So that's about creatively reimagining. This is not a picture of Topeka. This picture here is Montgomery County. In fact, it's a place I used to be superintendent at. They were on CNN not too long ago. And if anyone from Montgomery County or from anywhere in Virginia is on the line, I want to give a shout out to Virginia. A librarian in Virginia actually used drones. In fact, that's where we got our idea from. And so she's actually using drones to deliver books. So in our communications department, we have a communication staff member that got her drone's driver's license, basically her pilot's license, and she actually is finishing the test now and will be one of our drone certified people. And we hope second semester that we can either use the service or test out driving drones. But we got the idea from Montgomery County. So share your stories, text them in, chat them in now, put them on social media. We have power and hope and who we are and making sure that we're hopeful people giving that. We want you to expand your worldview. For us, in terms of our Wi-Fi, I gave a number of ideas about that. Here's one that just came from our finance person in the last week. He wondered with our free reduced lunch forms, if we tell parents that if they can fill out their free reduced lunch form and turn that in, could we then use the dollars that we get from that to, through a partnership with our cable company, pay the monthly bill that parents would have? Very creative, and actually it's certainly possible that we can do that. So we're exploring that partnership. But underwriting services, until we get broadband in Topeka, which is really what we're pushing for, is a big piece that we now have taken on. I mentioned earlier the Hope House, and I would be remiss if I didn't show the picture of Hope House. Here's the thing with this piece, talk about just asking. I asked my district, do we have any houses that we own that are falling apart? They said, yes, it's an old priest rectory. Costs about $50,000 to tear it down. Well, I suggested that we take $50,000, invest in it, ask other people to invest as well and see what happens. It sounds like an odd idea, but believe it or not, on the very next slide, Washington Post got a glimpse of that idea, as did our local paper, and they put it in the paper and thousands and thousands of dollars started coming in. I actually took a magazine. I love Home and Garden magazine and I love HGTV. And I told my staff in 30 days, we're going to flip that house and we're going to have Hope House for anyone that's homeless or anyone that's a foster home. And so I took pictures out of Home and Garden magazine of just pretty stuff that I like. I put it on the wall and invited rich people to come in or people just around the community that wanted to give to come and take a walk through the building. And they did. And everything in that house was purchased by someone that walked through, took a picture off the wall, and said, I'll buy that. We are surrounded by love all around us. We are surrounded by light all around us. So in this darkness of this pandemic, I encourage you to respond, reimagine, and restart, fearlessly restart. But that takes changing mindsets. That fearlessly restarting, you see this boat and this raft, and I will tell you, our associate superintendent, Dr. Hackett shared this story of how she went white water rafting. And when she got on that raft, she was telling the team that, man, there's a person that stands there and greets you and says, hey, these waters are new. I've never been down this river before. We're going to do it together, and we don't know what's going to be in front of us, but we're going to make it through together. But here's what I'm going to need you to do. When I say go right, you go right. When I say go left, go left. It takes all of us working as a team to make this happen, to listen, to be ready to respond, and to listen to learn, and seek to understand in order to serve. So we ended up taking the picture, and that's me over there leading that group. And she then ended up putting the pictures of some of our team members, which that's our communications team. So right now on this call with us and on the screen with us, you see the names, Ms. Risley and Dr. McDonald. Both of them are Data Dude and Data Diva, and they're our improvement specialists. None of us can go at this alone. Dr. Gray is our communications director that's fearlessly helping us communicate to our families daily and in the evenings and running our phone banks. So look around you. It may not necessarily be your own staff. It may be the clergy down the street. Use all of those resources to continue to move forward, because our kids are counting on you. I'm counting on you, and I need you to say, count me in. So as we close this piece out and we talk about mindsets, disrupt the status quo. I need you to know why and ask the piece of why am I here, and start with yes. Know the why behind the what. When someone says we can't do that, I want you to say why. When someone says this is a challenge, but here are some ideas, start with yes and then go from there. In these final minutes, I'll accept some questions. If you want to send those in, we'll just kind of bleed those in through these last 10 minutes of things that are coming in at the very bottom of the screen. But I'll share with this piece with you about changing mindset. Starts with telling your story, letting other people know what's possible. That book that I mentioned, High Poverty Schools, lets us know that there are schools internationally performing at the highest possible levels. So know what they are and who they are. Give that phone call and become an ally with the folks that really can continue to move things forward for you and with you. I will tell you that the structures and systems, they might be replicated, but they will be replicated. When you leave today, and as you're thinking right now, I want you to think about what are you going to start doing now that we're in this pandemic era, and what are you going to stop doing? What are you going to start doing right now? What's a system that you may put in place to get feedback, to hear from your families? What are ways that you can open up access and opportunity? For us, as we prepare to start, this evening is our board meeting, and we'll be sharing our COVID plan. You're welcome to look at Facebook Live and see our board meeting with our school board members and our teachers, and we'll be zooming in, and we'll be sharing some of our plan. But we didn't just give a plan. We first gave out a survey to our staff and our parents. And then from that survey, several options came up. From that, we gave another survey out to our staff. My goodness, 24 hours ago, we thought we actually were supposed to start school on August the 12th, but our governor shared it's too dangerous and that we'll be starting school after Labor Day. That was literally 24 hours ago. And with that time, my first phone call was to our KDA president, our union president, and sharing, well, we have a new calendar. We're having our teachers look at that, come up with a proposal, and then that will be the proposal from which we decide what we'll do next in terms of this calendar moving forward. They gladly took that on because we are a team. That's part of my leadership team there, the deputy superintendent, assistant, and many others that are on that team, helping us navigate change. It can be difficult, but that's why you're there. I believe that there are no accidents. I believe you're here at this moment in time because of this change that we're having now. I believe you're part of your school system because you're positioned on purpose. And I thank you for investing the time to be with me today. So as we proceed forward, there was a question about how the teachers and other staff members who are afraid of their safety move forward fearlessly. The first thing I'd say is to have your voices heard. And don't just send an email and say, I'm afraid. If you're a leader in a school district, don't be afraid to get those voices. If you look at Topeka Public Schools website, every video that we've had talking about feedback, every survey we've given, we've put the results out there, we put the feedback out there. The feedback that we just got this week, those results are being posted this evening, being transparent. Please don't suffer in silence. And if your voices aren't heard in the manner that you need them to be, I would encourage you to collectively get with other people that also are quite concerned about the most vulnerable and sharing some suggested ways to move forward. It's easy to say I'm afraid. It's harder to say, but here are some suggestions that I have. That's why the first group that I went to when school was changed yesterday was my teachers to say, hey, the calendar just changed. What are we going to do about that? Here are some thoughts. You all give me your thoughts. We are greater together than we are alone. Changing mindset takes relationships, pedagogy, curriculum. I'm reminding you right now, listen to learn. Use teachers to plan and lead. And on that curriculum piece, align, innovate, and assess for understanding. I'm closing out at this time in these last few seconds. If there are any other questions that I can ask and answer right now, some of them are quite lengthy. So again, my email is tanderson@tps501.org. I'm going to remind you, we're counting on you to respond, reimagine, and restart. I need you to be ready to say, count me in. When I say I'm counting on you, and I can't see you, but if we were in the room together, I'd be saying, I'm counting on you. And on the count of 3, I need everybody in the room to say, count me in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I'm counting on you. 1, 2, 3. Count me in. I trust that I just heard 12,000 voices saying, count me in. Be fearless. Reimagine. Re-engage your students, respond, most importantly, restart. See this as an opportunity, not as a challenge or a barrier. If your voices aren't heard, be strategic in offering voice and suggestions, and don't do it alone. Think about others that you can pull together around you. Ultimately, our students will be counting on us. What we do or don't do, much like Rodney McAllister in our case, will depend literally on how they live the next several months if they are able to be successful. The scarf that I wear right now, that year with Rodney McAllister when he passed away, I began receiving these scarves. I have at this point thousands of scarves, literally. I actually have a scarf fetish. I always wear a scarf to remind me of Rodney. This one is a Save the Children scarf. That year I got my very first Save the Children scarf. It was an anonymous note that said Save the Children. Since then, I continue to get scarves every couple of weeks. That year, one of the teachers left the school that year, and I became a classroom teacher and a principal that same year. I never learned who gave me those scarves, but by the end of the year, I had dozens and dozens of scarves. And since that year of Rodney's death, I've always worn a scarf to work to remind me what I do or what I don't do will really make the difference in who a student will and could be. If I hadn't stopped to say hello to Kevon, who knows if he would have ever met, I'm very unlikely, Molly Higgins, who works for the Rams. If I hadn't met Kevon, perhaps we would have not had the Hope House. So I want you to know, you are positioned on purpose. It is no accident that you're in this session. Use your positioning and leverage it to make the difference in what your district, your classroom, your school will be like moving forward. Your students are counting on you. You have several sessions today. I want to thank ASCD. They have just done an amazing job with bringing 12,000 people together. Talk about reimagining what learning can look like. And so as we close on out, I'm going to turn back on that song, that it is bigger than me. And so as you get ready to go to your next session, I would encourage you to be thinking about, this isn't about me, this isn't about you, this is about our students and putting them first. And ultimately, the space we're in right now, it is most definitely bigger than me. Thank you for joining me today. As we close out, have a great Easter conference.
Afraid of missing you. Trying to dim my light.
So just keep sending those and we will get back to you. Our hashtag and our social media is at the bottom.